Live stream folks, you will be getting all the information in here will be coming to you via mail or email, one way or the other. You'll have it. So, and link should be going out if you don't have it already. I think you should have it. So again, please let us know that you're watching. Okay, so really quickly, and it is going to be a quick trip because we only have half an hour. Just going to go through what's in here so you know what's in here and are aware of it and can plan accordingly. So first of all, now I don't have one, but
what do you need?
Just wait.
Oh.
Everybody should have a pink slip in the right-hand side. Everybody hold your pink slip. Okay, that is your portfolio review notification. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. You've been very patient waiting, and some of you have even been really kind and said, I think I missed it, or I misplaced it or something. I've always had to smile and say, no, it just hadn't been sent out yet. So everything, they have been scheduled, so take a look at it, and if you need to reschedule for some reason or another, you can get in touch with us, but please do that as soon as possible so that we can reschedule. So that's that. So I wanted to draw attention to that. All right, go ahead and the other thing that's there is this form. Everybody hold up a gray form. This is the WCFS Spring Testing Registration Form. This is basically just another opportunity for you if you haven't already told us that you want to do testing this spring. Go ahead and fill out this form. There's basically 3 different types of testing. I shouldn't say that. There's 2 types of testing, but kind of 3 different categories. So first of all, if your students in 8th grade, they are going to need to take the Iowa Test of Basic Skills on March 14th, whether that you do it here at the WCFS office or if you do it on the Eastern Shore. But it is going to be happening on March 14th. So if you have a student in 8th grade, that is required. Then we have what we call our recommended but optional student testing for grades 2 and 5. You can have a special testing session with Becky at the office. So if you're interested in that, you can do that. Again, it's not mandatory, but it is recommended. And then the last is the optional student testing in other grades. Basically, if you are interested in doing testing with Becky, you can do that. Or if you're interested in taking the IDBS, even if your student's not in 8th grade, we can certainly accommodate that. Many of you already know we already did our PSAT testing earlier in the school year. That usually happens in the fall. For those of you who are visiting today, we do PSAT testing in the fall, generally speaking. So we don't do SAT testing, though. You need to find local testing centers to coordinate for that. So anyway, we need this form in by February 16th if you're interested in especially the ITBS, because we have to get those tests ordered and all that squared away. So that's that. Most of you probably have seen this before, but just in case you forgot, you need an updated version. This is our Expo handbook. Expo is in April. We're going to hit those dates in just a minute, but basically everything you need to know about submitting an Expo project, exhibit, etc. is in here. So make sure that you're looking at this because that will be here before we know it, believe it or not. And there's also our registration form for the Expo is inside the booklet. So make note of that. All right, go ahead and flip to the other side of your folder, the other pocket. Everybody hold up your green slip of paper with a picture of Frederick Douglass on the front. We're really excited about this, and it is a little bit of a sprung on you. But nonetheless, we are doing a field trip, and the reason why this came to our attention, first of all, how many of you know who Frederick Douglass is? Okay, so, he's one of those people in American history that you've heard of, few facts here and there, but he had a pretty amazing impact on our nation. He has a really unique story. Pastor Cox really has benefited from his story just because he's a figure who looked at his circumstances and he had pretty poor circumstances in comparison to most of us. He started out as a slave. Most of us had not started out as slaves, but he saw opportunity where other people would have only seen hardship, and eventually went on to become an incredibly influential author and speaker. He was friends with many, many people in the abolition movement. And yeah, so the bottom line is that he is also from Maryland, which I did not know that. But he was originally from Maryland, so he's a Marylander. So we're excited that this year is the celebration of his 200th birthday. And there's going to be a free event that we are encouraging all our families to go to. You can read about on the back, down in D.C. actually. And he had a house around the Anacostia River, and they're having a free event where you can tour the house, you can do all kinds of activities and so on. That's going to be on February 17th. That is a Saturday. So keep that in mind. You know, the field trips are not mandatory events, but they are fun events. So if you're able to come even for any part of the day, that's great. Gary's family is going to be there. My family will be there, and we're not formally going, you know, from one particular location, but we'll try to coordinate and meet up. So let me know if you are going to go. And we'll have more information on this as we go. So want to draw attention to that because that's coming up next month. And then the last thing in your pockets is some new information from the NCAA. I'm not going to do a detailed review of this, but basically just want to draw attention. They did just recently update and modify Division II academic requirements, and those are listed there as far as what subjects are covered. The good news is that basically if you're following, we already have all the bases covered if you're following WCFS requirements. And then the main thing to pay attention to are electives. They do specify electives, but anyway. So like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just be aware that it's there. And they also did update SAT score stuff for qualifying, I believe, for scholarships for Division I. So that's there too. Anyway, so that's more or less for your information. So take a look at that. All right, very good. And now go ahead and turn into about the middle of your actual notes. You should find a blue piece of paper that says 2018 events, reminders, and blurbs. So we're just going to really, really quickly go through this just so you know what's going on for the next couple months, basically between now and the end of the school year. So first of all, we are having a legislative day next week. Again, somewhat short notice, but basically historically legislative days are days when Mr. Cox goes into Annapolis to basically connect with legislators and other folks from the Department of Education. That's something Gary has done on a regular basis really since the school's inception. So what he has done is he will take those who are interested, young students, high school students or junior high age students who are interested in basically knowing more about what's going on in Annapolis. The intent is to give them kind of some really hands-on education, in-person education of what's going on. In years past, some of the young people who have gone on those trips have eventually shown an interest in potentially interning at the legislature, and we've had several students who have done that. So anyway, that's coming up on the 25th. That's a Thursday. There's some details already listed there as far as what would be required and what needs to happen. But if you have a student who's interested in coming, you need to let us know right away so we can coordinate that. But basically, they would be going with Mr. Cox. He'd be providing the transportation for that. So let us know. Workshops are continuing on into the new year. Our first workshop of the new year is later on this month on January 31st. We have 3 more in January and February and March. Those are here at the office. We do live stream those as well. And they, if you've already paid for workshops, obviously you want to be here. If you just want to come to one, you can certainly do that as well. Workshops are also a really good opportunity if you have someone who's interested in Walkersville. Invite them to come along. We've been really, really excited about the last workshops we've had, and it's been a blessing. So, and along with that, we also have the Eastern Shore workshops. So those are taking place. They're always a little bit later than the actual one because we go ahead and play the video from the previous workshop. So those are in February, March, and April. The fourth item there, first semester ended yesterday. So can you believe you're halfway through the school year? It's pretty exciting. We do need your semester reports into the office by January 31st. Now you can mail those in, you can hand them in, or you can actually email them. Any of those are acceptable, just as long as they're into the office by the 31st. That would be great. And then again, we have portfolio reviews coming up. They've been scheduled pretty much for February and March. So pay attention again to your pink slip and let us know if you need to reschedule. I don't have a flyer here, but the ski trip is the 1st of February. Registration for that is coming up next week on the 26th. So if you'd like to go, please go ahead and get those into me. That would be great. And actually, Donna, are you back there still? Yes. Could you hold up the blue flyers just so people see them? So they're the flyers if you didn't get one of those yet, and all alumni are welcome. So we'd love to see you. And then we did talk about the field trip. So again, put that on your calendar. One of the things that we're really excited about this year are we're trying to get the dads meetings, the regional dads meetings, reignited again. That's something we've done in the past historically. We're trying to get those going again. Basically, it's an opportunity to connect with dads in the area, so dads from the school as well as potentially other people that you know who are dads, whether they're homeschooling, even if they're not necessarily homeschooling. The content of these meetings is encouraging to basically any dad who is looking for encouragement. So our goal, we've been working on getting these coordinated. We are working on getting them coordinated in the Baltimore area, the Annapolis area, and Eastern Shore. So we should be having those dates nailed down pretty soon, but those are going to be, there's going to be one in the winter and then one in the late winter and then one probably in mid-spring time. So keep that in mind. And actually Gary's going to be talking a little bit about that, I think, in the dads meetings as far as the content of what that's going to be. So dads can look forward to that. Testing, we already went over that, so that's coming up on the 14th. One of the things that we have been doing this year is the junior high school student council, which has kind of been a, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a reinvention of some of the things that have always been part of WCFS, the junior class and the senior class, yearbook committee, those sorts of things. What we've tried to do is expand it to something a little bit larger and basically a little bit easier, especially since we don't have as many students participating as we have in the past. So we're trying to help the younger students be able to participate as well. The committees that have always been there, junior class, senior class, are still there. There are still things that are specifically focused to them, but we've expanded some things to be more all-inclusive of all the junior high and high school students. And one of those things that we're planning on doing is a student council forum. That's coming up on the 16th. And the vision for this is we live in a culture that is constantly throwing out ideas that are basically challenging everything you're teaching in your home. I'm sure that's not news to you. And your young people are getting a whole slew of thoughts and ideas from the culture. And what we basically want to do is, so often it's really easy just to kind of try to shut the door and, just not really talk about it much because, as they say, you don't want to, any kind of advertising, even if it's negative advertising, is advertising. So sometimes we just want to talk about even the negative stuff so that our kids don't have to hear that. But what we wanted to do is to really come alongside parents in giving, especially our young people, opportunity to discuss some of those things that are going on in our culture in what we'd say a safe, constructive environment. So basically where they can say, hey, we want to talk about this issue. And we say, well, sure, let's think about it. And, so for lack of a better example, just recently we had the March for Life yesterday, pro-life issues. There are a whole host of things that are related to that, even new challenges that our young people are having to consider and think through. How do we engage with people on that? What does the Bible have to say about these kind of issues? How do we respond to people who hold a different viewpoint? One of the things I really appreciate about the March for Life yesterday was there was such a strong emphasis on loving the other side. Somebody said during the rally that, abortion, if it was logical, if it was an issue about logic, then there wouldn't be any abortion because abortion is illogical. So he said, you know what, you really have to speak to the heart of these people because a lot of them, that's where they're at. So anyway, the bottom line is that we want to allow for an opportunity for students to engage in good dialogue, and even as a student council, come up with, okay, how can we address this issue as young people in our generation from a biblically thought out perspective that affirms the truth of God's word, but also affirms our responsibility to be ambassadors to our culture. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a minute, but we have a clinic every Friday called the Nathaniel Bowditch Mentoring Clinic, and part of that includes a class where we're actually talking about this sort of thing. So some of our students who have been there, we've actually been engaging in some of these discussions, and it's fun. It's over lunch sometimes, so sometimes the kids get to sit with us, and a lot of times it's just Gary and I hashing it out, and they get a few words in edgewise. So the Student Council Forum is intended to provide a lot more opportunity for the young people to discuss that. So we're going to have more details on that because I know that still can seem a little bit nebulous. Well, how does that work? But we're working that out. All right. We mentioned Expo, so make note of that. That's coming up on April 27th and 28th. I'm sorry, 2018, not 2017. I apologize for the typo. And that's going to be at the Frederick County Fairgrounds, Frederick Fairgrounds. Spring Dads Meeting, we already talked about. We'll have a date on that soon. And then another student council event. Our student council forum is a little more serious in temper. The student council field day is intended to be a little more fun. So we have a couple ideas what that will look like. We'll be doing some games outside, potentially go on a hike. Might have, if the weather isn't so good, we might have some indoor games, those sorts of things. So just an opportunity to have some fellowship as a student council. So all our junior high school folks are going to be invited to that. And also we are really going to try, well, first of all, probably a lot of you aren't necessarily aware that we have a number of affiliate programs, both actually several overseas. We have 3 overseas, one in the Philippines, 1 and 2 in South Korea, but we also have another affiliate right here in Maryland. Westminster Christian Family Schools is operating underneath the WCFS umbrella, and they have several students involved in their program. And our hope is that in some of these student council forum days, we'll also be hoping to engage them, inviting them to come participate too. So you can be actually praying for all those things. And then finally, not finally, I shouldn't say finally, not quite finally, but big day on June 2nd, of course, is graduation. And I'll put a little plug in. If you are graduating senior, you do need to come to the senior meeting later on this afternoon. So we'll go over some more specifics about graduation. But everybody's always invited to come to graduation. It's a great opportunity to kind of see just the student body and how things work. I went to a couple graduations long before I was ever involved with the school. And was always really encouraged because it's not anything like you've really seen before, and probably most of you have experienced graduation by now, but it's just a really blessing. You get to hear from the students, and they always have just really, really great speakers who come in and share and admonish the young people. So that's coming up on the 2nd. And then second semester portfolio reviews are going to be in May and June, so just keep that in mind. And the second semester, go ahead and turn your page over. We'll wrap it up here. Second semester ends on the 31st, and your second semester reports are going to be due by the end of June. So once again, you can send those in by the mail, hand them in, or email them. And then finally, last event of the year is the open house on June 23rd. And again, that's just a really, really good opportunity if you know people who are interested in homeschooling, or are not familiar with the program, please let them know. It's a great opportunity to come and get information and so on. All right, so that's kind of the events. Then let's talk about a couple other blurbs administratively that you should know about. Just going to go through these quickly. We are considering a name change, so we appreciate input on that. Just a couple comments on that. First of all, our general reason for that is that for a long time, a lot of the staff have noticed that when we're trying to engage with new people about the school, one of the first things that's confusing to them is, well, I don't live in Walkersville, or, you know, wait a minute, you're not even in Walkersville, so why is your name Walkersville? So basically, we keep running into where it's a little more of a hindrance than a help at this point. And we're trying to brainstorm about what would be a good idea that would basically remove that barrier, immediate barrier that people have, so that they're more invited into the context of what's going on. We're primarily thinking and pretty confident that we want to keep Christian family schools, just because that is really good, succinct definition of who we are. But we're thinking about changing the W to a different W word. None of that's been solidified in any way, but we are interested in, if you have thoughts or ideas about what do you think would be great, that would be wonderful. So just, that's one thing we're in the works of thinking about and discussing, and we'll have more information as that process, you know, goes forward. So one other thing, that a project administratively we really would want to put together this year is a promotional video. I had the opportunity to go to a little seminar on social media during the fall, and one of the things they just were really encouraging is that people generally will spend a little more time watching a 3-minute video clip than spending a lot of time reading information. And in my experience, that's really true. Like, that's how I am. I would much rather watch a little video about something and just tell me what I need to know rather than spend a lot of time reading. So one of the visions that we have is basically including all of the Walkersville Christian Family School family, both past and present, to be involved in a project that will help really tell what we do and why we do it and how people have been benefited or blessed as a result. So so be praying about that, and if you're interested in participating in that, we would love to hear from you. Again, this is still stuff that's still pretty preliminary, but please keep that in prayer. We're also always looking for families who are interested in hosting a homeschool information meeting. If you have friends or family who are interested in homeschooling, and they would like to hear from someone who knows something about it, or hear about the Walkersville program, we have staff that are interested in working with you to do that. I'm especially excited about the prospect of older families reaching out to millennial homeschool families, because there are people like me who are homeschooled and are planning on homeschooling, but there are also a lot of people who are still new to the concept and are interested in doing it, but just need some encouragement. So we would love to coordinate if you have people who would like to do that. Local events, you know, our primary strategy is trying to find what is the best thing to plug into that's the most worthwhile. And we're actually not even necessarily saying if you know of a homeschool event to go to. If you know of any event that you might think, okay, I think there might be some people there who might be looking for this sort of thing. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go back to the Nathaniel Bowditch Mentoring Clinic just because I want to really talk a little more about that. But the NCAA information, again, check that out in your folder. And then one little blurb about transcript requests. Please try to give us a 2-week window to get a request over to whoever you need it to be gotten over to, because it does take a little bit of administrative work to make that happen. Now, we do have a process. If you need it expedited, we can certainly do that, but it does cost more, or yeah. So to avoid that, just plan ahead as far as that goes. We try to get it done within 5 to 10 business days, and depending on what's going on, we might even be able to get it done faster than that, but just do make a note of that. So again, the Nathaniel Bowditch Mentoring Clinic, just a few moments on that. Nathaniel Bowditch, we've talked about this a little bit during the year. Nathaniel Bowditch was an American hero, really, from back in the Revolutionary War days. He had some pretty difficult circumstances when he was growing up, to say the least. He spent a lot of his younger days being and basically indentured to the people he was being apprenticed with. And actually, looking at Mark Kelbaugh, he is actually known as an actuary. That was actually the title that historically now they go back and give him. That's really what he did. So he's very good with numbers, very good with math. The bottom line is he eventually, of his own initiative and resources, pretty much revamped American navigation. And we just saw an article that came out last fall where he was honored by a group that works with the Navy. I can't remember the actual name. National Geospatial Intelligence. They honored him as basically the person who contributed to American navigation. And to this day, his book is carried on every U.S. Navy ship. And is considered essentially the gold standard for navigation. So why do we have a clinic for him, or about him, or in his honor? Basically because we want our students to recognize what Nathaniel Bowditch recognized, which is, again, hardships, difficulties are not things to resent. They're not things to use as an excuse, but things to embrace and say, hey, you know what? This is to use the secular term, I've been dealt a bad hand, but as a Christian, you're not ever dealt a bad hand because God is the one who's orchestrating. So part of the purpose of the clinic is to help students recognize how to look for those opportunities and to develop character qualities like self-motivation, diligence, and to have accountability for students who need that. But one thing we also want to make sure everybody understands is everybody can benefit from that. And, everybody's at basically different degrees of needing that. So even if you have a student who maybe necessarily you don't think is struggling as much, they would benefit from the clinic still. We have a class I referenced earlier, Biblical Foundations of Self-Government, that is engaging in some of those discussions that are going on culturally. So, and we're willing to work with wherever the student, if the student just needs a little help in one subject area, that's fine. Anyway, so that happens pretty much most Fridays from about 9 o'clock to, it is a little bit open-ended really based on what the needs of the students are, but we're basically there all day. We have an academic, we have our classroom time in the morning, then we have personal one-on-ones with students going over work as needed, and then we have projects for them to do in the office. They're either helping with projects that we're doing as a ministry or just practically upkeep around here, just developing those skills. Yes, and it is live streamed as well. So the class part, not the mowing the lawn part. So. Of course, that's an interesting thought. How to mow the lawn. Anyway, so hopefully that makes sense. All right, so that was our half hour. If you have questions on any of this stuff, let us know. We are going to go ahead and have a breakout session now. Dads are going to be going over to the office with Gary. So we will be meeting there. Moms, you're going to be here with Becky. And then just to kind of get you in the mindset here, at noon or about noon, we are going to head and have lunch, but also begin a little celebration that we're having for Nana, honoring her today. So we're going to start down in the fellowship hall. You're going to be able to get your subs or get your lunch prepared. There's going to be some desserts. Nikki Trecanelli has got some things set up for that event. And if you did bring desserts and haven't brought it in yet, please do that at that time. And then we're going to come back up here about 12:30 and have some time of sharing for Nana. So. Don't forget to sign your paper. And yeah, if you haven't signed her little picture frame, that would be great. So thank you. So, and just because we're on a limited schedule, it is our goal to be downstairs
at 12, so we can begin there. And Mark Kelball is going to begin us with a word of prayer, and then after we have our meal, we're going to come up here and do some sharing. So be thinking if you have just a little something that you would like to share in person, the mic will be open, and it'll last about 45 minutes, depending on how much time we have left. Thank you.